What's a moment with a friend where you've just had enough of their bull shark? Story 1. Horrible toxic friend who only ever talked about herself. She constantly complained about every aspect of her life. I knew way too much about her marriage. She and her husband both had drinking problems, but she just talked rubbish about him and his drinking all the time to anyone who would listen and constantly berated him no matter who was around. Friends, strangers, people they just met that day. It didn't matter. Made the mistake of going on a group vacation with them. By the end, I never wanted to see either of them again. And I didn't. Oh, classic. Not one of those. They are the absolute worst. Guys, I think we all have a friend like this, don't we? I'm sure we all do to some extent. Who's just a toxic person. Like, we all just do have that one toxic friend. Guys, let me just apologize as well before we get into the video. I'm not feeling well today at all. I've got a fever, my throat really hurts, my voice isn't great, my head is banging. So if I'm not as energetic as usual, I do apologise, but please stick with me, okay? It's Ashley and the gang forever, so thank you. Story 2. My friend was just generally a butthole and difficult to communicate with. So 4 other friends and I sat him down and we're like, bro, you're a butthole, stop it. So he proceeds to tell us how since we all think that makes us the common denominator. Really? No, really, dude. Story 3. Not a good friend. More of an acquaintance than anything. In middle school, he kept pantsing me. One day, he did it in front of a group of girls, so I got sick of it, and when we were in a hallway in between class, I pulled his pants down, and then his underwear too. I felt pretty bad about it afterwards, but frick that guy. Frick you, Brad, you probably are still a butthole. Oh, so you guys call it pantsing in America, do you? What did we call it again? Moonering? Whooshing, we called it. Whooshing. I'd just been whooshed. And you know, I actually used to have a massive fear about being whooshed. Because the boys just didn't do it to boys. The boys would go around and do it to girls as well. I suppose when you're really young, it wasn't that much of a big deal. Like now, it probably would go down as assault, wouldn't it? But in school, it was extremely scary for me. But yeah, no, people were just doing it whenever they wanted to each other. And I used to be like, no, not me, please. Story 4. My friend wanted help to move to a new apartment. He arranged for movers to move the furniture, but wanted me and my van to move some stuff he considered too fragile for the movers. My job was very busy, and I tried to get out of it, but he and his wife begged. Okay. I worked a double shift on Friday to get Saturday off, and turned up Saturday morning to help. My friends were still asleep in bed. They hadn't packed anything, and the movers were coming in 3 hours. Oh, and they're also unemployed and had plenty of time to pack, but were just too freaking lazy. So I spent 3 hours helping them pack all their rubbish in boxes. When that's done, I spend the next 8 hours carrying and loading stuff into my van, driving 20 miles to the new place and unloading 3 van loads. Eventually it dawns on me, their rubbish is not fragile. It's ordinary household stuff. They just used me as free labour. The movers charged by the hour and had a big truck that they didn't fill. They had the room and the manpower and could have easily loaded up all the stuff I moved and drove for $100 extra. I calculated my 12 hours of work, 150 miles of driving, includes driving to the friend's house, saved my useless cheap butt friend about $100. He didn't pay for gas or food or anything. Totally freaking useless tool, and I never helped him out again. Oh yeah, that's not good, is it? Not good at all. I think we've all got a friend like this as well. A friend that just likes to take the mick a bit. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't say I've got lazy friends, but I've got someone that just expects the absolute world for not much in return. But I do love them. I wouldn't not see them again because of it. Do you know what I mean? I think it's more of just right, let's sit down and have a chat because you're doing my nut in, basically. But it's not like you're not my friend anymore. Story 5. This was years ago, before Uber was a thing. I had a very toxic best friend who was constantly making terrible and irresponsible decisions. It was her 21st birthday, and I offered to be the designated driver because I don't drink. She told me no, and that her boyfriend would drive us home. Long story short, she encouraged him to get wasted, and I ended up stranded in Hollywood. Thankfully, I had just befriended this awesome new girl and called her for a ride home at 2 a.m. This new girl became family and just stood beside me in my wedding last month. One door closed, another opened. Story 6. My friend group always made it a competition to see who was the most depressed. It was toxic, and I'm glad I left. Good old echo chambers, because why try and fix something when you can just complain about it endlessly to people who already agree with you? I'm sorry, your friends, it was a competition of who was the most depressed. Is this a new thing? Because sometimes I feel like people think it's cool to be sad all the time. Obviously, if you're genuinely diagnosed with depression, I'm so sorry to hear that. That is horrible, and I hope you're okay. But people that aren't actually diagnosed with depression and there are people out there who just put on being sad, and think that it's like a cool, trendy thing. Like, no, it's not, okay, hun? And yeah, your friends sound like absolute nutters if they're trying their hardest to be sad. Like, everyone be happy. I love being happy. I'm quite a happy soul, actually. It's great. Story 7. My friend blatantly degraded everything I did. I told her I got an interview at a company I'd been applying to, right? I was so excited, and she just basically told me it wasn't anything to be proud of and the job was dumb. Okay, goodbye. Yeah, let me tell you now, get out of that friendship because she is never changing. And do you know what it probably boils down to? Jealousy. Because we all know people that are jealous just react like this. They really do. Story 8. My ex-best friend got kicked out of his house and lived with me and my mum for 3 months. He didn't have a job, a license, and the only thing he contributed to the household was cleaning every now and then. I drove him everywhere and he never gave me gas money, etc., etc. Just a huge freeloader, basically. One day, he was at another friend's house and asked me to do his laundry for him. I said, no, I'm not touching your dirty, stained underwear. Do it when you come back. And he got fuming at me. He literally said, and I quote, "It's the least you could do for me." I said, "The least I could do for you?" And then I went on to tell him how I'm not his freaking mum. I don't have to do his laundry for him, and told him he could find somewhere else to stay. It was almost a year ago, and we still haven't hung out since. He moved in with another friend before their mum kicked him out 2 weeks later because he refused to get a job and contribute to rent. Also, he asked said friend's mum for $700 to pay off a school debt. Didn't really make it seem like he would be paying her back. She said no. I have so many more examples of irritating poo he did when he lived with me, but it's way too much to type out. Story 9. One of my old friends had an online girlfriend. Everything about her was a giant red flag. And to cut to the chase, she was most likely some guy trying to catfish him for his money. One day, she private messaged me very flirtatiously and suggested cheating on my friend with me. I sent screenshots of the whole conversation to my friend and he confronted her about it. She then convinced him it was a lie and all the screenshots were fake and proceeded to spam me with threats. I told him about it and he basically sided with her and told me that's what I deserve for trying to ruin a perfectly healthy relationship. Oh, gang, let me tell you now. There is nothing worse than a girl or boy coming between two best friends because of a relationship. Like, it happens so much more than you think as well. Like, people that have been best friends for years and years will no longer be friends because this little so-and-so, the girl or boy, has got involved and stirred things up. I mean, we're girls, right? We do get jealous if our boyfriends has girl best friends and vice versa. That's usually the icing on top of the cake, to be fair. But yeah, not a nice situation to be in. Trust me, daddy. Story 10. When I was 18, I was dating this amazing guy who sadly ended up passing away the day before my high school graduation. My best friend forever of 10 years was supportive until her poo bag boyfriend said there's no way I'd be able to love someone as fast as I did. Now, a good friend would say it's none of his business and leave it be. Nope, my best friend forever decided to agree with him. After she dated and loved so many butthats in days who treated her like rubbish. Yet I, someone who's never felt love from anyone else in my life because my self-esteem was so rubbish and she knew it. Finally finds someone and he fricking dies. I don't think falling for someone in 6 months is fast for falling in love. He was amazing, and if it wasn't for him, I would not be who I am today. Because of that, our friendship went to hell. I never realised how much of a doormat I was to her and let her treat me like rubbish all the time. Then she went too far and destroyed my boyfriend's favourite shirt I always saw him in. And by destroy, I mean covered in mustard, ketchup, old pictures of us, white Sharpie saying things like, "Wear the pills, witch. I myself to get away from you," and so on. She cut it to pieces and then her boyfriend and his other guy friend off on it. This was my best friend forever. I knew since the 4th grade, right? Someone I always thought had my back. Someone who we joked about being in each other's weddings and having kids grow up together. Having wheelchair races in the nursing home. Until her evilness was put towards me, I never realised how much of a rubbish person she really was. Okay, I'm sorry. I've never heard anything like this before in my life. They off on the t-shirt. This just can't be real. How can someone turn like that? I just don't understand. How can someone you've known for that long suddenly just be a completely different person? How do people have this different persona that we don't know about? It's mental, isn't it? Has this happened to anyone else? Where you've had a bestest bud and they've just completely changed into something you never even knew they were. It's frightening stuff. Story 11. We worked together. My husband herniated a disc in his neck. When I told her I had to leave to take him to the ER because he couldn't drive as he was in so much pain, she got mad at me and said, "Do you know the position that leaves me in? We're not supposed to be by ourselves. We answer phones all day. Other people were there that could help." She said the only way I could leave was if I called our boss, who was on vacation and I was already working it out with the person in charge that day, and asked if I could leave to take him to the ER. Mind you, she took off at least one day every other week, without notice, to go get shots for her back issues. Now, someone who has back issues should know good and damn well how painful and possibly serious a herniated disc can be. Needless to say, we're no longer friends. She got fired for her bull shark 5 days later. It wasn't the first time she'd apparently been causing issues before I started, and I had no idea. I'm now a manager at the company in the position she wanted. Story 12. I had a few friends who were just simply two-faced. To your face, they were the nicest people around, but behind your back, they'd rubbish talk you, spread rumours, leak closed Facebook posts or private chat logs to try and make you look bad, edit comments after you responded so it looks like you've responded to a heated response about something innocent, etc. They were exceedingly fun people to be around, and that helped mask that they were playing mind games. They'd always be trying to set people up for an emotional response so they can go, "Look at what he said." I started catching on after I noticed people started attacking one another, myself included. People would know about things I said in private, and I ended up getting heavily involved in drama because of it. I let my guard down and they abused my trust and convinced me to play the game back without me even realizing it. Charisma can be strangely influencing. I ended up backing off and just walked away. They were truly toxic, corrosive people. Never spoke to any of the people involved with that group again. Basically had to clean house, purge friends. Couldn't trust anyone associated with the entire crew. Wow, that is extremely toxic. I've kind of been involved in the same kind of thing at school with a massive girl group, but I don't think it was even that bad, to be honest. Like, leaking private conversations and things, like, no, that's a new level of, like, bad human, isn't it? Like, because you're having these conversations, like, in confidence with these other people and they're just completely disobeying your trust. Like, imagine some of the things you say to people in private, right? Hoping that it's not repeated. That is just the worst thing a human can do, personally, I think. Like, betray your trust in that way. Not about it. Story 13. Dude is the only person I've ever met who genuinely believed in social Darwinism. Doesn't matter if you started out with nothing or started out with huge bank accounts. If you don't rise up, then you don't deserve to. Then got really upset when the house full of artists and broke college kids all got mad at him over the course of months when he, the only wealthy one around, kept talking like that. Wait, I'm sorry. I have no idea what just happened. What's Darwinism? Social Darwinism? I've never heard of that before in my life, so I wasn't really too on board with what was happening in that one. But guys, you know I love it when my friends tell me what things mean in the comments, because I do read them. So someone please tell me what on earth Darwinism is. Story 14. After a bad falling out, and she tries to reach out, and I'm like, okay, cool water under the bridge. Then I realise it's because she has no friends and only calls me to tell me about herself for hours. Yeah, no thanks, one-sided friendship. Should have never been reeled back in. Story 15. Stop being best friends with this girl I've known since the 5th grade at the end of my senior year in high school. Because I saw screenshots from a friend that she was talking rubbish about me behind my back and spreading rumours to friends of mine and people saying I was a mutt. Saying that if they touched me, they should get checked and that I was a crazy drug addict. I finally had the guts to block her and stop all contact and not hang out with her anymore. Good thing we had no classes together. Ooh, like, what is the point in doing this? Like, what is she possibly getting from it? Do you know what I mean? Again, it stems from jealousy. She wants to be the one on top and she wants to see you under. She wants to see you down, begging to be her friend. Do you know what I mean? You have to be careful of these crazy girl and boys, guys. You really do. Because they will make your life a living hell. Especially in school. Story 16. In high school, my friend always claimed to sleep with so many women. He would point at random hot girls in public and be like, "Yeah, that's Amanda. I slept with her." And I would just have to take his word for it. It was always at convenient times, like when we're pulling away on a bus or train while she's outside, so the random girls could never verify the account. One day we were standing on a train platform and he pulls this rubbish again and points at a random hot girl. "That's Becky. She goes to my high school. We slept together." I was having no more of this rubbish. "Well, let's go say hi," I said to my friend as I started walking in her direction. That's when my friend suddenly becomes panicked and is trying to stop me frantically. I continue on. "Becky, hi. I'm X's friend." As I point to my friend who is beet red with embarrassment, this girl stares at us in utter confusion. "My name isn't Becky. Who are you guys?" I just said, "Thank you, that will be all." My pal swears to this day that he just made a mistake and only thought that she was his friend, but he stopped doing it. Story 17. Not one moment, but over the course of a year or so, I grew very detached from them because I realised that all they did was complain about everything. Always brought down my mood. Not a good person or mindset to be around. Heard the whole, "You are who you associate yourself with" quote, and realised I didn't need to be friends with that person anymore. Round of applause, gang. You know we love our round of applauses here. When you realise that, okay, that is one of the best days of your life because it's so true. Who you hang around with, you will become. And I promise you this because I can tell you firsthand. So, whenever you get a slight inkling that these people have different aspirations, have different goals, aren't as aspirational as you, I suppose, they're just on a different path in their life. Just make sure you get out while you can, okay? Because it could be too late one day. So take it from me. I'm Ashley Agony Aunt, okay? That's what I'm here for. Story 18. When she took credit for all of my party planning. I spent a lot of time and effort, okay? But she told everyone it was hers and hers alone. Fricking witch. Ugh, I had a friend who flipped poo about always planning everything. Several things wrong with that, okay? So she decided to let her dear old friends know this by throwing a massive tantrum. She was claiming credit for planning everything, which damn well wasn't even true. And the previous several times we got together were based on her tight schedule. She was being picky and miserable and shot all of our ideas down. Or she just went full control freak and decided everything for us. Which you can't have it both ways. If you have to do it your way, you can't turn around and complain people aren't doing it for you. We are no longer friends. Story 19. I was stuck in a foreign country and had lost any money and my cards. Called my best friend for help, asking for a cash forward and with immediate payment upon return home. This is important. I've never ever had a habit of borrowing. I was desperate. I was staying with a friend in the country, but who was a poor student, so I did have a place to stay. I had plane tickets home a few weeks later, but no money for food or even the train to the airport. Turned out the real friend wasn't my best friend back home, who I'd helped out before, but the poor student who lived off of $1 ramen cups decided to help me out and feed me. Story 20. When they decided to skip the only wedding event I was having in the US, my bridal shower, and go shopping instead. After spending the next week leading up to it repeatedly telling me how excited they were to help celebrate my wedding, I'm learning that getting married and having a wedding is a great way to see who really cares about you. I learned this the hard way. I don't have much family and I begged my uncle, his wife, and his mother, my only surviving grandparent, to attend my wedding, which was on the opposite side of the country, US. They hemmed and hawed for months saying things like, "We need to see if we can take it off work," before telling me just a couple of weeks before that they're not going to because of money issues. Which I call bullshit because I know my uncle has money. And I also offered to pay for the flights and a hotel for them, which I couldn't really afford, but I really wanted people I can call my family there. I'm pretty sure they never intended to go from the get-go, and I'm still pretty messed up from that. See, I don't understand this. Like, why is it such an inconvenience for your family to not attend your wedding? Like, to me, personally, I'm quite a sensitive person, so I would get offended by that, and it probably would be like, that's not me talking to you ever again territory, basically. Like, forget your apology or whatever excuse it is, especially if you know they've got money and they're telling you it's due to money issues. Like, no. I'm not about that. A wedding's supposed to be one of the best days of your life with your closest friends and family. Like, if they don't want to be there, then they're basically telling you they don't want to be involved in your life. So get rid of them, honey. Story 21. I watched my best friend shift from being a fellow stoner to a full-on coke addict. One day, he showed up at my work and made a huge scene because I owed him $20 and he needed it right then and there. I had the $20, but told him to frick off and I'd pay him when I got off work. I gave the 20 to a mutual friend to give to him and walked away from that friendship. I've always resisted drugs, okay? But I've had some difficult situations when younger. Seeing a roommate going from being a bit of a stoner to a full-on addict. I never did know where or when the drugs were done. And a very hostile, paranoid roommate from having been a pretty chill friend. Sad, really. Don't know where he is now. Was just glad to end the connection. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video and have a wonderful day. Story 22. I just came back from a weekend in Vegas with a friend. I've travelled with her previously, but never just the two of us alone. She's more of a mutual acquaintance, if you know what I mean. Anywho, I agreed to accompany her on the trip for whatever reason. Long story short, it was a nightmare. She refused to pay for anything. Almost got us into a fight with two random girls, on a helicopter at that, and just was an overall bumhole. On top of that, her diet is terrible. She's mildly obese, and she pretty much destroyed the bathroom every night at our tiny Airbnb apartment. I completely lost my poo on the last day of the trip when she turns to me while eating at a restaurant and says, "Yeah, I should tell you that I ran out of money." What? Like, is this even real? As you may have imagined, we are no longer friends. Story 23. He was a sometimes friend. He'd only text if his other friends that he was closer with were busy and he was bored. I'd invite him to stuff and he would say maybe, because he was always looking for something else to do that was better, and then if he couldn't find anything, he would come. I was fine with it for a long time, because it's not like we were super close or anything. But what pushed me over the edge was that he got legit mad at me for not playing a video game with him because he was bored, and I told him I simply didn't want to play the game he was playing. He said, "Good luck getting me to play with you in the future." I replied, "Okay," and haven't talked to him since. Oh, one of these ones. We've all got one of these friends as well that will wait for the better option. Like, you just know full well that they think there's a better option than you. Do you know what I mean? I've had that before. And I've probably actually been someone who kind of waited for the better option as well. It's easier to do than you think. But yeah, that was when I was a lot younger. But yeah, I fully get what you mean. Story 24. Bestie left me with 10k debt. And while supporting him treating me like dirt, and a long list of poo and lies. But I stood up to him and he stole my stuff and left. I was starving for days while he was secretly getting money from family for food and drugs. Then he'd pretend to be hungry while I went to work. Story 25. She told my mum I was going home with her that day because my friend was mad I hadn't let her have goldfish. My mother left me at school. I don't have a phone, and by that time, everyone had cleared out. I was at the school until 10 that night when my mum called her house to see how I was doing, and I wasn't there. Where are the teachers? Your friend's parents. I get picked up at 4 when the school closes. I had no idea this was going on. So after the teachers had left, I just assumed my mum was late. It took about 30 minutes before I realised I wasn't going to be picked up, and I didn't know why until the next day when my friend told me. Wait, so stop. You could have literally been right, you were left at school for hours upon end, with no one contacting you because your mum thought you were at your friend's house, all because of a dang goldfish. Like, what? This girl must be a young psychopath. She's a young mass. I can feel it in my bones. Story 26. When I realised I was their fallback friend. Whenever they pushed others away, they'd come to me and act like they were a close friend. Even though they ignored me or treated me poorly whenever I tried to initiate conversation before. I don't know why I put up with it for so long. But I eventually cut off contact. It's dumb, but I still hope they're okay. They had a rough background, but at the same time, I was sick of being toyed with. I feel like they used me because they knew I had low self-esteem and they could manipulate that. And for a long while, they did. Again, they had a rough life and I wished them the best, but it got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I know this feeling. Had a friend for 15 years and the only time she ever wanted to see or talk to me was when she needed something. Everything was always about her. I ended up quitting a job to move out of state for her, and now I own land and estate I'm never going back to and haven't heard a word from her. I should have known better, considering the fact she talked smack behind the backs of every person in her life. But hey, live and learn. I always thought I'd die without her in my life, but honestly, it's been getting progressively better since she let me down so hard. I've tried even reaching out again, but they made their choice. Life sucks, man. I hope you know you're worth a lot. Don't let people get you down so hard, hard life or not. The fallback friend. I mean, to me, this is kind of similar to being the friend who waits for the better option. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think they come under the same umbrella, essentially. But yeah, I've been this friend as well, and I've had fallback friends. I think it's just kind of human nature when you're that kind of age. But yeah, obviously now, the ripe age of 25, I would never have a fallback friend. The friends I have in my life now are my forever friends. But yeah, growing up, this was like a constant cycle of my fallback friends changing and rah rah rah. Story 27. She accused me of being selfish for deciding I didn't want to live with her after walking in on her attempt. I was more than willing to be there for her, but also had to make sure I was taking care of my mental health. It's such a tough situation to be in. You care about the person, you want to help, but at the same time, if you're not mindful of your own needs, you'll get destroyed. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Story 28. Back in middle school and my first year old high school, I had a friend who did nothing except belittle me and treat me bad. He called me names, hit me, stole my stuff, and probably laughed at how stupid I was with other people in the classroom. I was a very lonely kid back then, and since I almost exclusively talked to him, I was always nearby and he, as well as others, always called me his pet. Whenever he did something exceptionally bad, he'd back down and apologise, then resume the abuse after a while, and of course, I accepted all of that because I had no one else. As a result, I became someone who's easily manipulated by people who show affection, And after I realised it, I turned into an extremely defensive person when it came to other people. I didn't want them to exploit my weaknesses, so I often pushed them away and or showed them no emotion so they couldn't take advantage of that. He left the school during the first year of high school, and after that I managed to grow a little. Sure, I still hate meeting new people because I'm scared they'll use me again, but at least I'm not manipulated anymore. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm glad you've been doing some growing. I think as well, in a previous video, if you guys are like top fans of these videos, we were talking about how we think, well, I think that the way the child's brought up reflects on their behavior. Like, so it's essentially the parents' fault if they're badly behaved. But reading this has just made me realize as well that I think a lot of my personality traits came from school and who I associated myself with. Like, a lot of things I do now, are a reflection of what I went through in secondary school, I think. So yeah, I think, it's not just the parents. I think school and friends can definitely change behaviors in kids as well. Like, because you're growing up, aren't you? And who you associate yourself with as a kid will definitely create you as you grow into an adult. But yeah, what's your opinions on that, gang? Story 29. I let my friend move into my house as a subletter. I was the main tenant, and she kept stealing off me. It got to the point where I locked my stuff up in a box so she couldn't steal off me. And while I was at work, she ripped the lock off to take my stuff. She then tried to claim that she hadn't done it despite being the only person in the house at the time. She later stopped cleaning altogether. And when I refused to clean up after her, she rang the landlord and tried to get me evicted from my own house for not cleaning up. My room was spotless and it didn't work. But it was incredibly hurtful and humiliating to find a letting agent going through my house at 8 a.m. while I was confused and in pajamas. If she'd apologised after the stealing, I probably would have been quite forgiving. She was younger than me and I tried really hard to be her friend, but the blatant lying was enough. Trying to get me evicted was the last straw, and I rapidly moved into my own house with no housemates. It's very clean and no one steals my rubbish. Okay, what's everyone's opinions on friends living with friends? Because I've done this myself. I live with my bestest friend and it wasn't a great experience. We're still besties now, but like, they're never going to have the same living standards as you, okay? Unless you're really lucky. But you have to be prepared because obviously you're friends as well. You're not their parents. You can't tell them to clean up. You can't tell them to like wash up, to do the laundry, rah, rah, rah. Like, you can't tell them to do that. So you need to be prepared just to deal with it. And that's a lot harder than you think, trust me. But yeah, I want to get your guys' opinions on that. So what do you think? Have you had bad experiences? Have you had good ones? Story 30. I recently reconnected with my childhood friend. He invited me to a bar and said that some of his friends would be coming too. I said sure. It was okay until someone mentioned that they're kind of celebrating because one of their annoying friends finally herself. I was like, what? They were trash talking her, saying that she was such a downer and that they are finally free. They were laughing and saying stuff like, wow, she herself in a hospital in a closed ward. She had to be really determined. I didn't know that girl, but no matter who she was, it's fricked up. I don't want to ever see them again. Story 31. Had a friend who purposely started drama. When we got to college, I slowly started to avoid her. She made a huge deal of it. It was a little difficult to completely rid of her because we lived across the parking lot from each other and I was friends with her roommates. The last straw was when she wanted to tell her roommate, the other went to school with us, that I'd gotten pregnant and aborted at 17. I was in my other friend's room when she decided to basically yell this and we both came out and told her off. My friend told her she was sick of her stupid drama and how ridiculous her rumours were. She started a lot of stupid stuff between people. I just couldn't take it anymore. Story 32. I had a distant friend move to my city, where I was basically the only person she knew. We spent a lot of time together at first. And we definitely became good friends for a minute, but I started to realise that A, she never talked about friends back home where she came from, which made sense when I realised that B, she was one of the most self-absorbed, toxic, judgmental people I've ever met. She couldn't go 5 minutes without either complaining about someone or something, or playing victim of some sort of circumstance. After about 2 months, I lost my patience and called her out on it. We had a mild fight and she never spoke to me again. That was about 5 months ago and I have no idea what happened to her, but I bet she hasn't changed at all. Story 33. I had these two friends and we were all close, but the other two were drifting. One day I'm getting texts from friend A about how he thought friend B was so stupid and didn't like him. At the same time, I was having a normal text conversation with friend B. I was defending friend B to friend A, but in one of the texts, I accidentally sent it to friend B. I had put myself in a dilemma where I had to pick a side. I'd had enough of A by the end of the conversation. Obviously, pick B. Oh, there's also nothing worse when your besties fall out, is there? Like, and then you're in a position where you have to choose between them. Especially when we were younger in school, that was a big thing. Like, if they fell out, you were expected to not like them as well. Do you remember that? I always used to hate being in that position. Story 34. Bestie turned socially manipulative narcissist turned a group of friends against me. I predicted that my serving as a moderator between our significant others, at their request, would be twisted into his ad hominem attacks at me over psychological issues I don't actually have. I called his butt out on the spot for it, burning 18 years of friendship. Well, maybe 15 years, with the final 3 being nothing but abusive gaslighting of me and our mutual friends. Story 35. I used to have this friend whom couldn't drive, so I took her to college there and back. Total of 25 miles a day, but my car took up a lot of gas. Little did I know this witch had been talking behind my back for the pettiest things ever. I've never done her wrong. It took me 6 years to end my friendship with her. And she low-key resented me because she had a problem with jealousy and envy towards a lot of people. She was filled with hatred. But anyways, I gladly took her to school and back as a favour of what friends would do. The semester ends and she cuts me out of her life, calling me a fake toxic witch, and blocks me everywhere. Yeah, I think that's enough of bull rubbish. I wasted 4 months of every day of the week carpooling her butt to school. I'm sorry, you're doing her a huge favour. How does this turn round to you being fake toxic? And she's the one going around talking behind your back. Honestly, some people, bro. Literally, just the worst. Story 36. When my best friend agreed to a Roman Catholic church wedding, even though both her and her husband are atheists. Her parents wouldn't pay for it otherwise, and to my dismay, she really wanted her to unleash her inner princess bridezilla. I'd never seen this ugly side of her character despite our 6 years of friendship. She sneered and snarked her way through the planning until her hypocrisy and materialism disgusted me. Atheist? Fine. Roman Catholic? Okay. But I couldn't bear her lack of integrity. I dropped her and felt instantly relieved. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos coming daily.